Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick. We got Harrison and Sean. How we doing? How was your holiday, boys?
Awesome. How you
Happy
doing,
New Year,
boys?
boys. Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year. We're only like 85 days away from baseball, like less than 3
That's
months.
crazy, I know.
Oh, love it. Love
Remember,
it.
remember all the chaos of Y2K, and now here we sit here in 2023 like it's whatever.
I know.
I can't even. The world was going to end with the Mayan calendar too, but
I
we're
know,
still
here we are,
somehow.
23 years later, still chugging
Yeah.
along.
Goodness. All right. Before we get going, make sure you like our Facebook page. You can share it, share all of our statuses we put out, everything we share, comment. You can also subscribe to our videos on YouTube as well. All right. We're going to jump right into it. Leading off, this Carlos Correa drama is okay. When we left off, Correa had just signed with the San Francisco Giants for 13 and,
Well, I should say, I'll interrupt you.
Of pennies.
He never signed. He always agreed. It was always he agreed
okay,
to terms,
right.
agreed to terms, and they would never sign.
Right.
So,
all right.
True.
So we started off with the Giants, and then the next morning we wake up and we're like, whoop, hold the phone. Like he's not going there. Like they didn't like his x-rays or his physical. So then the Mets jump right in and Cohen's like, I'll take him, and then pays him the money. And now we're still kind of in limbo because the physical came back with the Mets. So what is going on with Carlos Correa? Is he going to sign? For how much? What's the contract going to look like? And go.
Wow, crystal ball minute here. So just real quick. So just let's track down the facts here. So like Nick said, signs with San Francisco, physical comes back. They don't like the X-rays. And before even renegotiating with San Francisco, the Mets call, who apparently the Mets had made an offer and they took San Francisco's over theirs. The minute there's trouble, the Mets call. Boris pulls, goes to the Mets. Mets, same scans, same results. And now they took a break for the holiday and they're expected to pick up talks this week. But to this point, nothing has changed on the Carlos Correa front. They don't like the physical. He's still in agreement with them, but nothing signed. And we're stuck in limbo as they begin talks again this week to figure out what happens next. So the $1 million question is, what happens next with Correa? And for those of us who are Red Sox fans, this is not unprecedented. We've seen this before. And I go back to the JD Martinez contract. So before the Red Sox signed JD Martinez, he had a Lisfranc injury in his foot that made them uncomfortable. And they put language in his contract. So if you remember, he signed a 5-year, $110 million deal with the Red Sox back in 2017. They put language in that contract where if he had an injury related to that Lisfranc injury he sustained before the end of 2020, so if he spent more than 60 days in the DL, because of that, by the end of the third year, they convert years 4 and 5 to mutual options, which gave them an out. So basically, if that injury reoccurred, they had a way out. And Martinez signed that contract, said, great, I'll prove to you it's not a problem. And sure enough, he did. It ended up being his back and old age that started to slow him down. But the foot injury never recurred, and he was good to go. So we've seen this from the Red Sox side before, and it's actually not uncommon to have medical language in these contracts. But we've not seen a 12-year contract where you're betting really hard on a guy's long-term future with an injury past.
Well, I think that's exactly it, right? I mean, I think if the agreed upon terms between the two sides were a 4-year deal for $600 million, right? So let's say it's the same annual value, but only for 4 years or whatever the hell, right? I don't think we see this big hang up.
Yeah, not as big a deal.
I think the idea is because the offer was for 12 years.
Right.
And I think that's exactly where the speed bump is right now, is likely about language in that contract. And Harrison, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, the latest we got from Scott Boras was, he hasn't signed. So teams are other teams in camps are still able, it's still legal. They're able to reach out and try to negotiate a deal. But I think Boras had said no. I mean, we're gonna, we like the terms that we have from the Mets as far as the years and the money. We think he's a good fit in New York. He wants to play in New York. New York wants him. Like, all indications are around New York wants Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa wants the New York Mets. To me, this screams contract language. It just, they're worried. And again, all indications from what we're reading, right? It's an ankle. It's an ankle thing that happened like 8 years ago or 9 years ago when he was in minor league ball. Something, for the record, that has not actually plagued him at the major league level, which I actually find somewhat interesting. But something that, an injury that happened when he was in like single A or whatever it was ball.
Yep.
You're committing 12 years to somebody like that. Obviously, something like an ankle and a joint injury like that has to worry you as the years get piled onto somebody, right? The more they play, and he's not a small guy. Like, he's a big guy. He plays
Big
a
dude.
physical brand of baseball, if that's a thing, right? But he's a physical baseball player. Like, it's that I think you're worried about taking a toll. Like, I wonder if it's something along the lines of, hey, like, if this ankle thing comes to become a problem in the first 5 years of the deal, we can void the contract, or we have an out, or to what this Red Sox did with JD, right? It turns into a mutual option, like those kinds of things. So I still think it gets done with the Mets. And I think the terms probably are relatively the same, if not exactly the same. I don't think much changes with the terms. I think it's largely centered around the language within the contract about what allows the Mets to feel comfortable with signing that deal for 12 years. And I think a lot of it is the ability to get out if it becomes a problem. Because think about this. If it takes 9 years for this ankle injury to become a problem, I think Steve Cohen is happy to pay that money.
Yeah.
Because you got the prime years of Carlos Correa playing at the best of his level without this becoming a problem. You'll pay for that for the final 3 years. Fine. You made a deal with the devil in a sense. I'm fine with paying that. I think what they don't want and what they shouldn't want and what no owner wants is for something like that to become a problem in year 3, and now you have really no way to get out of it for 9 more years. You're paying this guy however much money a year to play 60 games because he can't stay on the field because of something you were worried about in an MRI.
Yeah, if you're not playing in the back 3 years, it's kind of what we were talking about with Xander Bogaerts, right? You're not paying him for the back 3 years of that contract.
No, you're paying him for the front 8.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you are the Mets, you're happy if Correa, heaven forbid, does fall apart when he's 36, 37. You're still getting his prime. He's healthy. He's performing, hopefully. But definitely this has to be to protect the first, 2 to 5 years of the contract for sure.
Well, and to elaborate on what Sean had said, yes, this is an injury Correa sustained in 2014 when he was in high A ball. He slid into third base, popped his ankle. They put a metal plate in. And up until last year, the plate hadn't bothered him. Last year, Correa came up I think he missed a day or two when somebody slid into that ankle plate. And his comment was, it felt numb. It didn't feel good. It was vibrating, but I was okay. Like, I knew I was good to move around. He ended up taking a day off just to let it rest. But it's not been an issue since. However, you're banking on a guy, as Sean said, his size, speed, agility, to have a metal plate and some screws hold up for a long period of time. Doesn't mean they don't have to go in every so often and clean it up or go in there and fix it. But you just don't want to see it be a prolonged injury like it was for him back when it happened. So I agree with Sean. I don't think he goes anywhere. I think if Boris thought it wouldn't get done, he would have accepted some of these calls that were coming in. But
that dude's a shark. That dude's a shark.
For sure. Well,
he didn't think it was going to get done. Look at what happened, how quickly it went from San Francisco to New York.
Exactly. The Giants kind of went, boy, we don't like that X-ray. We want to look at it. He goes, nope, see, we're going to New York. Like, there was no wait. There was no negotiations, no conversation. Boris pulled and ran. Now, granted, this is the second time, so his leverage is probably gone. But teams are calling, and the Giants are one of those teams calling, going, hey, we wanted to renegotiate. You didn't give us a chance. Right. And he's not taking those calls or those meetings. He's basically saying, hey, we're working with the Mets. We're going to see where this goes. Hold tight. So if he didn't think they'd get something done, I think he'd be pointing Correa a different direction. That tells me he thinks it'll get done. There's going to be some kind of language in the contract that if at some point in time this injury reoccurs, they've got a way to either void out some years or take away guarantees or something like that. And it's going to be enough where he's going to sign the 12-year, $315 million contract, but there's going to be some hurdles in there where if this injury is a problem, he gets out, or they get out, I should say.
Yeah. And I think from the Mets point of view, I think you're comfortable putting language like that in. And I think you're comfortable probably because the way your roster is currently constituted with Eduardo Escobar, I mean, you have the luxury of Eddie's kind of your third baseman. If you're worried about this early on in a contract, you just essentially switch roles. Eduardo Escobar becomes your third baseman, really, and Carlos Correa plays third, but spends a majority of his time batting DH. And yeah, he's a high price designated hitter, but it's worth it. Like to put that in the middle of the lineup, I mean, that's worth it. And then you think you got this Brett Beatty kid coming up who's looking really good in the minors. And if Carlos Correa looks great, and if 2 years from now we think, hey, this guy's a full-time third baseman, Beatty becomes a wonderful trade piece. Somebody that you can look at and dangle for maybe that missing piece if you feel like you have a missing piece. If not, he's a security blanket, and you bring him up in 3 years, and Eduardo Escobar's gone, and Carlos Correa remains your DH. Like, you have flexibility within the organization. So I think if you're the Mets, like, you still have to be supremely confident that you can get it done. And you like when the talks resume, whether it's today, tomorrow, whenever, like, you still have to be very confident going in, having the conversation with Correa and Boras, saying, hey, like, we want to get it done. You want to get it done. We want to pay you what you want, all this stuff. Let's just work out the language and move forward. So I think it gets done, and I probably don't think it takes very long, to be honest with you, but we'll see.
And for Cohen at this point, it's just money. Like, it doesn't matter. He's so far above the luxury tax threshold that it doesn't matter. It's only going to help him, right? If Correa doesn't end up coming, he doesn't end up coming. Like, but it doesn't matter. He's not like just barely going to cross the threshold. I mean, this guy is through the roof.
Oh, he's blown through it. Yeah.
Well,
right. So it doesn't matter. This is a win-win for Cohen.
Yeah. As it stands right now, the Mets payroll is going to be $495 million next year. And that includes $111 million in luxury tax money. So Cohen basically said, you made the rules. I don't care. I've got the cash. I'm going to spend it. The guy's worth $4 billion, I think was the final number, was the number that I saw his net worth claimed at, to spend $500 million on a team that generates probably 250 or 300. So he's going to actually put in some personal money to make this payroll work. And the guy does not care. But that's also the reason why the league was nervous about letting him in to own a team, because they know he is a 100 miles an hour, I'm going to win at all costs kind of guy. And that's who he is. And that's exactly what they got. I mean, we were laughing about the meme going around. There's a picture of Steve Cohen, and it says, MLB owners, sir, please, you can't just sign everyone. Steve Cohen points at a seagull, 4 years, $36 million. Like, the guy's going to go out and get what he wants. He's going to bring in players that he wants. He's going to build a juggernaut, and he's never lied about that. He's always said he was going to do that. And now he's doing it. And to him, if he loses $100 million at the back end of this contract on Correa, I don't think he cares.
No, but over the course of theoretically how well the Mets should do, like, if this deal goes through, which I think we all think it probably will, and this team is constituted as they are, like they should be for the next handful of years, the success that they're about to have, whether they end up bringing the title in, whether they make it to a couple World Series and don't bring it home, whatever, the success that they're about to have, by the time he loses that $100 million, he's already made so much more. Like he the money that's about to come in on the front end and the success from the Mets, by the time he gets to that point of losing $100 million, he's already up $700 million.
Oh, yeah,
it's not.
It's
you know
silly.
what I mean? Like it's by the time that that bill comes due.
Right.
Like, I mean, I always say it's a future Sean problem. Like, that's literally a future Steve Cohen problem. Like, that's not, like, we don't have to worry about.
No.
Like, that's fake money. That's monopoly money at some point that doesn't exist yet. So it's fine. And, and I think, people, you hear, like, when is this bad for baseball? When's the league going to step in? But I think what the Mets have also done, though, they haven't been, like, they spent a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've signed, the Verlanders and the extension for Diaz at the back end of the bullpen. And they've kind of been smart about it, though. Like, it's been, yes, it's a lot of money. It's big yearly values. Like, Verlander was a couple of years.
Right.
The Japanese pitcher was 5 years. Like, you're not tying your, I mean, Correa is obviously a long deal, which theoretically, I should say technically hasn't been done yet, but I mean, we assume it will be. It's really the only long-term deal. Like, they're still giving themselves flexibility in 3 years from now to say, hey, if this isn't working, we're going to cut ties. Yes, it's only money, but we still have the capital. We still have the ability in the market to go out and make some more moves. We're not tying ourselves down for 12 years and hope for the best we win one or two. Like they've been smart in the deals that they've signed to still give themselves flexibility still in the somewhat short term.
Essentially, he's doing what the Atlanta Braves are doing, but the Braves were able to get their guys signed earlier.
Home,
Early, right? Yeah.
right. So earlier, so
Yeah.
a little bit cheaper. So like essentially,
all home
Cohen's
stuff.
kind of doing the same thing. Like
Well-
it's not like he's going out and like spending free. Like he's not getting every top free agent here. You know, like he's extending the guys he already has. Sure, he picked up Verlander. Sure, he's picking up Correa. But like all big market teams should pick up one or two key free agents that are going to help your team win. But
Yeah, but to bring Brandon Nimmo back,
right,
you know,
exactly.
and we touched on it the last time we were on, but like Brandon Nimmo is the guy that everyone looks at and they're like, nah, Brandon Nimmo. But then you watch him play and you're like, he's just so valuable.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
like Brandon Nimmo is the kind of guy where stats don't tell the whole story. Like you have to watch him play.
Yep.
You have to see what he brings to the club. And, you know, that's a perfect guy to bring back and re-sign. And again, is he worth the yearly value? Like if you look at just the numbers, it's probably on paper, it probably looks like an overpay. But if you ask every Mets fan and everybody in that locker room, feel like that guy's invaluable.
Right. Oh, 100%.
Invaluable. So they brought him back on a relatively team-friendly cost in that sense. And it's a short-term deal. It's a handful of years.
Well, and I think you got to look at, so the luxury tax rules changed. So what did the owners go and do? The owners and GMs, what they went and did is they found out what's the loophole in this whole program. It is to sign these guys to much longer deals. So think of it this way. Let's run the scenario of Correa. So 315 over 12 years is about $26 million a year. He made 35 last year on a 3-year, $105 million deal. He made $35 million last year. So you figure over 12 years, the next 4 years, Correa is probably going to play like a $35 million a year guy, give or take. So really, the Mets are going to save $9 million a year over the next 4 years. So they're going to put 36 million. Basically, they come out $36 million ahead. Those next 4 years, Correa probably plays at about a $26 million a year man. So now they're basically break even. The last 4 years, he's probably going to play like a $15 million a year guy. So they're going to be $10 million upside down those last 4 years. However, as inflation goes up, the value of those guys in later years goes up. So really what ends up happening is that the Mets have now loaded that whole cost in. It's team friendly up front, break even in the middle, and they probably lose a little bit at the back end, but it all washes out because in 12 years, a guy like Correa of that talent is going to be making $40 million a season. Granted, that won't be Correa anymore, but they've locked in this guy on a contract that allows them to keep the average annual value down, which makes the luxury tax a little less painful. However, for the Mets, doesn't even matter because the luxury tax is ridiculous for them right now. But same thing with Xander Bogaerts. You're going to get a bargain in the beginning, you're going to get market value in the middle, and you're going to probably lose a little bit in the end. But in the end, you're going to end up coming out okay. But because you're basically loading that in over so many years that you do come out ahead. Because
again,
these guys,
it
Xander's making
20 World Series.
Right. And exactly. And if you win, who cares? Like the money,
Right.
you know, now it's
Right.
even more friendly in the first few years. But a guy like Xander Bogaerts left Boston for $5 million more per season, but he did it because he wanted all those years. So these guys aren't taking it. They used to look at the average annual value. Now they're looking at the total contract value. So the Mets are giving out this huge contract. The Padres are giving out these huge contracts. In the end, they're going to come out better because a guy like Verlander, 2 years at $43 million, you're getting Correa for 12 years at 26. It just we're going to see a lot of these long-term contracts start to happen with these guys because you're going to be able to guarantee them a massive wad of cash that ends up being a team-friendly deal in the long run.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if he completely signs with the Mets, or I'm sure we'll find out sometime this week because the talks are going to be, firing back up now that the holidays are over. But over the 2-week break we had, Trevor Bauer was reinstated by the MLB, and the reports are that the Dodgers are going to release Trevor Bauer.
They've lost everybody else. Might as well let him go too.
Right. I mean, does he go somewhere like in a big marketplace? Does he kind of sign back with the Reds? Does he, you know what I mean? Like something on a lower tier team to get his career and his footing back? Like, what?
Can I ask a question before we even go there? Do we feel like he deserved the length of suspension that he got? And are we surprised that they ended up shortening it?
I thought the games that they suspended him for the first season should have been enough. Like, I didn't expect all of 2022 to be off the books. You know what I mean? He was suspended for most of 21, correct?
Right.
And then
Basically
all of 22.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Yeah, essentially 2 full years.
yeah.
It's hard
It's such
to
a
say.
touchy subject.
It's not even I mean, it is, but it's not even about that. It's dangerous to. We don't know what came up in the investigation, but
Right.
most importantly, like, we have no idea what the conversations between the league, the investigators, and Trevor Bauer were. Like, it's like, if Trevor Bauer was doing everything possible to, like, impede investigations and make it as difficult as possible, then, like, I would lean towards, like, yeah, he probably did deserve every game that he got.
Yeah.
Like, but if he's being, like, completely forthcoming, just, like, giving them everything they're asking for, and, like, completely, like, cooperating in every possible way, and they still found absolutely nothing, and they just don't like him because he speaks out, and they decided, like, we're gonna bend this guy over, then, like, yeah, that's probably not fair. But, like, we have no idea.
Yep.
Like, what happened. And I know it's such a middleman Dan answer because it doesn't really give us much, but I wouldn't feel right having really much of an opinion because I just have no idea how it went down.
No, yeah,
Like,
that's
no idea.
completely fair.
Like, it looks bad. Like, the things that get released, like, they look bad at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. But then they released the fact that they were really not able to substantiate too much as far as, like, illegal, like legal things are concerned. So it's like, well, everything can look bad if you look at it through the wrong lens. So, like,
Right.
maybe you walk it back a little bit, but then it's like, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. When you have that many people coming out, it's like, well, I don't know. Then you flip it. Like, I just really don't know. And I know it's such a bad answer to have on but I don't know.
I know this probably isn't a fair comparison because, again, I don't know all the stories, but you look at Deshaun Watson and people are like, all right, like, he got way more than he deserved, or he got the whatever. Like, Deshaun Watson's suspension is probably almost the same length as Trevor Bauer's. But the thing is Deshaun Watson only plays 16 games a year. So it looks like he got less than Trevor Bauer's 300 and something suspension games, right? But the length of time might be the same or pretty similar. It just looks different because Watson only missed 20 games versus Bauer's 400 and whatever,
Right.
whatever the math. You know what I mean? So like, is it fair to draw that comparison to those two? Probably not. But it's talking about the
closest
lens.
one you've got.
But that's what I'm saying.
As far as
looking through a lens is like that definitely, like, you have to sit back and be like, okay, let's look at length of time and not games missed per se.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think as far as, like, comparison for suspensions go, yeah, it's probably the best comparison that we have. But that's probably where the comparisons end. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I personally was never a Trevor Bauer fan, really, from the beginning. Like, from the minute that he was, like, this outspoken guy, like, it was like, for 48 hours for me, it was refreshing, and then it was just like, this guy's just a blowhard. Like, he goes out of his way to get in front of a camera. He goes out of his way to criticize the league. He goes out of his way to criticize teammates in his own clubhouse, players in another clubhouse. He just went out of his way to just, like, be a squeaky wheel. And some guys are just like that, and they just are what they are. But, like, it just didn't do it for me. So I will admit that I lean towards, like, yeah, suspend him for as much as possible. But that's also not a fair thing. Like, that's me being biased against him.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's talented. Is it official that he's reinstated? Like, is that official, or is that just?
Yes, he's officially reinstated.
Yeah,
official.
But we're waiting for the Dodgers for official word if he's going to be released or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way this whole thing went down is so Bauer spent 50 games on the administrative leave they put him on, where he was getting paid, but he was basically away. And then they suspended him on top of that for 324 games, not including his administrative leave time because he was paid for that. What this arbitrator said was, okay, that was too much. We're going to upheld. He's been out for 194 games. We're going to count the 50 games he was on administrative leave towards that, and we're going to reinstate him immediately because he doesn't deserve to be suspended for the remainder of, or the first half of next year too. They are going to dock his pay for the first 50 games of next season, but they're going to reinstate him to the league. So he's not going to get paid for the first 50 games of the season, no matter where he is. But he'll be eligible to play. So whatever he's still got a contract with the Dodgers. Somebody may inherit that money if he goes somewhere else, or the Dodgers are still on the hook for it. I'm not sure exactly how that works coming off suspension, but the arbitrator basically said what we just said, which was, yeah, he deserved to get suspended. This is too long. He was on administrative leave. You can't take 2+ years of this guy's life away from him. We're going to call it good. He's going to sustain the financial penalty, and life goes on. But now the Dodgers have, I think, another week or a few more days to decide what to do with him.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to stay. I just think it's like.
I mean,
I don't see LA.
The Dodgers didn't go after Correa because they're afraid the fan base wouldn't like him because of the cheating thing. There's no way they think the fan base is going to love seeing Bauer come back.
No.
But it's not only that, but it's also like you think about it too. Like when this whole thing broke, like all those months ago, like or years ago at this point, like he was a Dodger, so like all that headlines is like Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer, Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer. Like every article that was written, every notification we got on our iPhones was like, Dodgers pitcher this. Like, I think the Dodgers just want to wash their hands of it and just be like, you know what? We just don't want this guy associated with us anymore.
Absolutely.
Which I probably don't blame them. Like, I would likely be the same way, whether it was fair, whether it got too much, too little, like all that stuff aside. Like, they probably just want wash their hands of it and just move on. Like, that's what I would expect.
I feel like the Dodgers, when he got so vocal about the sticky stuff, and the Dodgers like stopped supporting what he was saying. I feel like back then they were kind of like, okay, like maybe we bit off more than we can chew with this guy. He's a lot. I think this is a great chance for the Dodgers to say, hey, this was a mistake. See you later, dude. Good luck somewhere else.
No question.
And now the question becomes which
stuff,
teams are like, come on in versus we don't want you.
Well, I don't think any team is going to open up their arms and be like, bring it on in, Trevi, baby. Like, I don't think any of that's going to happen. Right. But I think there will be teams who will privately have a conversation with Trevor Bauer and let's figure it out. Let's talk it out. Like, you talk to the league, you told the league your side. The arbiter clearly, agreed with it on your side, at least somewhat, like let's have a conversation. Let's just start there. Let's start at square one and see where it goes. Like, I do think there will be teams, and there probably should be teams that do that. I expect Trevor Bauer to be a slow going situation. I do not expect the Dodgers to cut him, and then like 3 days later, Trevor Bauer signs with whomever. I think it's gonna be a process. He might be the last guy to sign in spring training.
Well, this is going to be like
it might be like a Carlos Correa thing, where like be like, hey, like we need to know what happened, what we're getting into as an organization. Like we need to know the dates, before we make a decision on you.
Right. Yeah.
But we also talked about language in contract. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's language in that contract being like, dude, you stay off social media. You stay off, someone puts a microphone in your face, you tell them you don't speak English anymore. Like, I don't, like, you just, you got to almost tell this guy, like, you're on probation. Like, we're not dealing with it. Like, we're not going to be associated with that shit. Like it.
Yep.
So I don't know. I expect stuff like that. And he's not one that's going to lay down. Like, he's not going to say, yes, sir. Like, he'll fight something like that. So, like, to me, I expect that to be a lot of back and forth that just holds up contracts from being
MLB offered him a chance to basically come clean and take a suspension up front. And he goes, no, I'm not going to tell you guys anything. You want to suspend me? Suspend me. I mean, this is not a guy who's gonna be told what to do. He's gonna fight that to the end. But this is gonna be like due diligence on like a first overall draft pick. You're gonna want to sit down and talk with him, meet his legal team. You're gonna go through a physical. You're gonna want to see him pitch, make sure he's still got something. He spent the last year and a half pitching BP and who the hell knows where.
If you've been watching his TikTok, dude, he is still dealing.
He's still got it, but he's pitching to like, college kids. I mean, he hasn't seen a major league hitter in a while. You're going to want to actually see him throw live because the videos, who the hell knows? Right. If you don't trust a Major League Baseball radar gun, do you trust the one at the local friggin' batting cage?
Yes.
But you're going to want to talk to his legal team. You're going to want to talk to him. You're going to want to understand what his support system looks like. Where is he going to live? How's he going to handle himself?
Yep.
Like this is like first round. This is like number one overall draft pick due diligence you're going to do on a guy who's been in the league friggin' 10 years. Because you got to know what he's going to do.
It's just like 7:30 every night.
Well, it's just like Josh Hamilton. Like when people signed Josh Hamilton, like you had to assign a curfew and who was going to be his keeper because you had to make sure he stayed the hell out of trouble.
But you did that because you were getting 45 home runs. Like
Right.
you look at a guy like you look at at this point is putting that much energy, effort,
Yeah, that's a great point.
eyeballs, security team around. Like is all that worth for Trevor
Yeah.
Bauer that hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball in 2 years?
Yeah, you're not going to get
Like, and
NL
I
Cy
agree that
Young Trevor Bauer.
yeah, and I
And
agree that
he's
if
only
you're the
31.
owner or the, but it's not about age. Like at this point, it's not about age. It's
It's
you haven't
investing
pitched
in
at that
his
level in
future and getting burnt.
you haven't pitched at that level in 2 years. The fact, or I should say, the hope of you getting at least somewhat Cy Young Trevor Bauer, you ain't getting that at 31 or 32 years old. Like he's not just be able to step into Major League Baseball in April and May, and it's like, oh, Trevor Bauer's back. Like he might not have to spend a year in the minors, but like he's your fifth starter, and he's an average guy till August at the earliest, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Like, so
yeah,
is that worth it?
well, he's got to go through a full spring training. You got to stretch him back out. You got to see what he can do. You got to have him face major league hitters. But the flip side of it is, in the last year and a half, there's about 300 innings he didn't put on his arm that everybody else in his peer group did. You know,
Sure.
maybe
Yeah,
a little
okay.
break. He comes back with a liver arm. I don't know. You don't know what you're getting, but you're gonna have to do some crazy due diligence and have a really good look at this guy. Because is he going to step back? Is he going to be Trevor Bauer in April? No. But is he going to be Trevor Bauer in May or June? Maybe. Or maybe he's never Trevor Bauer ever again. You know, nobody really knows what you're going to get here. But there are some indications based on the throwing he has done and the fact that he's basically taken 300 innings off of his arm by not being around, that maybe it's not going to be a mess when he gets back. But
you know what's worse than never being Trevor Bauer again? Being Trevor Bauer.
yeah.
Well, yeah, right. And that's,
I don't,
You know,
dude,
I mean,
don't tell me for a minute that if Chaim Bloom signed him tomorrow, you wouldn't be jumping up and down that we've got a legitimate ace. That's how everybody's going to see him until he
Well,
shows that he's not.
because look at our pitching staff. He would be legitimately our
Oh.
ace. Like I could be our
Fair.
ace right now when I throw
Fair.
55.
He'd probably still be an ace on about 10 teams out there on day one, but yeah, I get your
but-
point.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It will be interesting. I mean, I'm sure that will come down we'll find out the official release date if the Dodgers end up doing that, but I don't see them keeping it.
I don't either. And we've talked in the past about other free agents about like, this is a great place for them versus, you know, I just don't see it working out there, this, that, or the other. I think organizations like the Atlanta Braves, like the St. Louis Cardinals, like organizations that are top to bottom, great organizations, well run, have a great reputable front office, guys that do things by the book. Like those guys, those are the organizations that I could see it working for.
Right.
A team that gives Trevor Bauer a ton of money because like they need the name or they need a good pitcher, but like to me, it's just like I just don't see that working out. Like he's going to need Josh Hamilton. I think was a really good kind of comparison for that sense. Like he's going to need that type of organization.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Sean, is like the amount of effort that's going to have to take to maintain Trevor Bauer off the field might be too much for all 30 major league teams, to be completely honest.
Well, I don't know about all 30 because I think Harrison has a really good point with the fact that those are the innings he didn't put on his arm during those, let's call it 2 years, which for I think a good third or maybe 40% of the league is going to be like, that's worth. I mean, that's 300 innings. That's not. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
No.
So
Yeah. No, you're right.
I do wonder. I mean, this is not a guy that was on the downslope of his career when this thing blew up on him.
He was friggin' lights out when he got taken out.
He was a top pitcher. Yeah, he was a top pitcher in the game when this happened. So you do look at that and say, this is a guy that was at the top of his game and then all of a sudden just hasn't thrown for 300 innings. I do think a good 40% of the league is going to say this is worth talking to. I wonder if how many of that 40% of that league says, is it worth the resources we're going to have to invest other than just money? Because it's more than just capital, what you're going to have to invest into it. I don't know. Yeah. I do think something gets done. I do think a team does do it. I just don't know how quickly it gets done. I think it's going to be a long process.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on from Correa and Bauer. That was a lot of talk for two people, but I mean, those are two pretty crazy circumstances that are happening kind of during the offseason here. But we'll switch to 3 key free agents that signed during our 2-week hiatus here. Nathan Eovaldi is added to the Texas Rangers rotation. Do they have the best rotation in baseball right now? Yes or no?
Depends.
I mean, they are the ultimate. They are the ultimate when healthy rotation.
Right. I was just gonna say it depends. If they're
I mean,
healthy,
like,
yes. If
you-
they're normal average, no.
Like you have Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi, who like are obsessed with stints on the IL. It's just obsession.
They love their in-season vacations.
They are obsessed. More obsessed than I am with insulin. They are obsessed with stints on the injured list. So I don't know. Like I think when healthy, if you can get 30 starts out of DeGrom, and you can get 30 starts out of Nate Eovaldi, and you can get 30 starts out of Martin Perez, that pitching staff is really, really good.
Yeah, they're top 5 for
really,
sure.
really good. And again, we've talked in episodes past about how good that offense is and how sneaky they put up runs. They get guys on base, they cross home plate, they score runs. They just couldn't stop other teams. If you can get 30 starts from those 3 guys individually, you are in fantastic shape.
You also have Andrew Heaney, who was no slouch. He's no slouch.
Right. Nope.
And John Gray was sitting being the ace last year, and he's like, "Wow, I'm the 5th starter now."
I was gonna say he's the 5th starter.
Like, I mean,
and right on their heels, probably at some point in 2023, you have Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter.
I was gonna say they've got young, talented arms coming up behind them too. It's that the funny thing is, I think the Rangers are a top 5 rotation right now, but I think they're going to be a top 5 rotation for like the next 7 to 10 years because as these guys phase out, Leiter and Kumar Rocker take over. Like they went from having like no arms to a whole bunch of arms quickly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like I'm missing one more guy in that rotation. Am I not?
No, I think you got him.
I thought somebody else signed.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, maybe not. All right.
If they just signed somebody, we forgot about him. Who knows?
I don't know. So Corey Kluber signs with the Sox. Okay, moving on.
I mean, another guy that like when he's healthy, he's still pretty good, but he's not Corey Kluber of old.
He's just an aging starter. That's right. I mean, that's just what it is. He'll come out, throw a no-hitter.
You did forget a starter. It's Jake Odorizzi is in Texas also.
Odorizzi, thank you. I knew there was another one.
He won't. No, he'll be in the pen. He's a pen guy. He won't start for them.
He's like your on the edge kind of starter.
Yeah, he won't start for them unless. Well, I mean, again, that's a great guy to sign though too, because when Jake gets hurt, you just move everyone up in the rotation, and Odorizzi can slide in the back end. So it's a good guy to bring in.
Right, and that's exactly what the Rangers went out and picked him up. I think via trade because they wanted to have the depth. So if somebody does go down, they've got a guy who can step up and is a starting quality pitcher, not just like the Red Sox said, just throw a bullpen arm in there and hope he can give you 4 or 5 innings.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't mind Corey Kluber for the Sox. I don't.
It's fine.
Corey Kluber was fine last year. I mean, he's not Cy Young Corey Kluber, but
no.
He'll give you some innings. But he pitched in your division, and I think that's another thing too. We talk about how good this division is, and it is. It's a very good division with the Yankees in Toronto, and Baltimore is very surprising, and Tampa Bay is just become that team that's like they just win 95 games. So it's like you have to like they're good, right? So it's like it's a good division. This is a guy that pitched in that division last year and did fine. He wasn't threatening to win the Cy Young, but he did fine. He's going to eat innings. He's effective. I just think these are the guys that until the Sox can, and maybe it's not this year, maybe they think a couple years from now, Brian Bayo can be this, ace number 1 starter. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But until that happens, like your options are to just stockpile a bunch of pretty good guys that can show up every 5 days and give you a chance. And
Yeah.
Corey Kluber is still a guy that can show up every 5 days and give you a chance to win.
Yeah,
And you
fair.
need that right now. So
Absolutely.
like, did I I didn't do cartwheels when they signed him, but I don't dislike, I don't look at that as like, oh, well, that's just Red Sox ownership or Chaim Bloom bringing in a guy past his prime. Like, I think there was a calculated, I think it was a calculated move, and I like the move more than I dislike it.
Well, and I think I'm the same way. It's like I don't love it, I don't hate it. Like but who else is in our rotation? We got Sale, we got Brian Bayo, we got Corey Kluber,
James Paxton.
Paxton's coming back. We don't know what we're gonna get with Paxton.
And you don't even know how healthy he is right now. Like, all indications are he looked good towards the end of last season, but what does that mean?
I saw Tim Wakefield at Fenway today, so I'm pretty sure he'll pencil in.
Well, I swear to God, he and Rich Hill were they split a cab ride with their AARP cards. I mean,
but Rich Hill's gone. Rich Hill signed with the
I'm
Orioles,
shocked
I think?
that guy is still around, or Pirates, or where
Pirates. It was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And, there's a guy like Michael Wacha still out there unsigned, and there's indications are the Orioles and Red Sox are now two teams talking to him. And what I also found interesting is that the Red Sox right now are reportedly taking calls on Chris Sale. There are teams calling to say, hey, is he available? And all indications the Red Sox are he is. For a package of prospects, he's available, because I think they're ready to just move on.
We'll take him.
Oh my God, could you imagine? That'd be the biggest theft of anybody's life. But
MLB wouldn't let that happen. They'd be like, yeah, no. we're nixing that trade.
Yeah, just like the A-Rod trade to Boston, right?
Yeah, but they'll let him go to the New York.
Yeah. But it's interesting because you've got. So Chaim Bloom came out last week and kind of defended their plan. He goes, look, I get people are frustrated, and they should be. Like, I understand it, but we are trying to build a sustainable perennial winner, and we're not going to do that with 11-year, $280 million contracts or 5-year, $120 million contracts. I get that's frustrating, but we're trying to build a perennial, sustainable winner that balances young talent with experienced veterans. And we right now have to rebalance that. After kind of hearing what he's trying to do, I kind of get where he's going. It's frustrating as hell right now because they're letting these guys go, and Devers might be the next guy to go because he won't fit into that box of perennial, sustainable contender. But this is what they're gonna do what the Patriots did. They're gonna bring in a bunch of those middle of the road guys, find a role that works, and try to slam it together, which is gonna work some years. It's going to work some years like 2021. It's going to work. It's not going to work other years like 2022. And it's going to be an interesting, choppy path.
That's all we asked for as Red Sox fans, was to just know what the plan was. Like, to see all of this happening, and we're just like sitting there going like this, like not knowing what's going on. Like, at least he came out and told us what's going on. Like, I have more respect that going forward with that.
Sure. I understand where he's coming from, because I happen to agree with that philosophy of building, particularly a Major League Baseball club, because it's so important to have the young talent coming from within your organization. It is vital. It's vital, and you need it. And I happen to agree with it for the most part. But I think the interesting thing with the Patriots analogy, which I again agree with 99% of it, but they were able to do it for so long because you had the best player at the most important position,
right?
That you were able to fill in. And I think Red Sox fans listening to that analogy are probably nodding their heads, but saying, yes, but we let the best right fielder go in Mookie. We let one of the top shortstops go in Xander. We're about to let one of the best third basemen go in Devers. So it's like, yes, I agree. I agree that we need to be able to balance it. We need to be able to bring in not just middle of the road, but like veteran players that can come in and fill a role and be leaders and be veterans. But you also need to have that cornerstone player / position, which the Red Sox, again, when they were winning divisions, or not, maybe they weren't winning the division every year, but they were competitive.
They're in the running.
They had that David Ortiz. Like, you had that cornerstone player. Like, you had the cornerstone players that you were filling in around. Like, now our cornerstone players are getting paid by other teams, and we're just being like, yeah, but like, stick with us. It's like, I'm willing to stick with you. I'm very willing to stick with you. But give me the cornerstone player that I can be like, all right, I'm building around that guy. Like
Right.
if it's not Xander, if it's not Mookie,
Yep.
and then we said, well, it's probably Xander, and then it wasn't Xander, and then we said, well, good Lord, we hope it's Rafi. Well, then make it Rafi.
Right. Yeah. Let's just
Right?
do it
Like
though.
if you make
That's such a great
like
point.
if you right, you know, and the one more thing I'll say about that type of philosophy works in theory, but it brings me to another Patriots analogy, which is what this Patriots offense is this year. They are not nearly as bad as you're hearing on the radio or seeing on Twitter or whatever. In my opinion, this team is close. They don't need a big shakeup. They
Yeah,
need an offensive
agreed.
coaching staff that can design an offense.
Oh my
I don't
God,
think
it's so bad.
I don't think the talent is that bad. But what happens is when the coaching is so behind, you're giving your offensive players no room for error. There's no margin for error. They have
Right.
to be perfect on every play. They have to be perfect. And if they're not perfect on every play, it goes for negative yards. This front office for the Red Sox is telling the players that they have to be perfect every day because you're not going to get the best shortstop. You're not going to get the best right fielder. You're not going to get the best starting pitcher. So even on a bad day, if you had Mookie and you had Xander and you had Rafi at third base, like even on a average day, like your talent is going to win out more often than it doesn't. But now it's not. So like now you have to be perfect. And we saw last year, they had stretches where they were really good. And then they had stretches where they weren't perfect and they just lost so much ground.
Yeah.
So
I
if you're
think
going to
I think you just crushed that point. It's just like it'd be like Brady leaving after the second Super Bowl and just being like, bye. That's essentially what they did with Mookie Betts. What they, you know what I mean? It's like, thanks
Right.
for the World
But-
Series. See ya. They didn't
but the
keep
counter-
that cornerstone guy.
The counterpoint to that is though, so Brady left. He did leave, and they've made the playoffs without him. So they haven't fallen off a cliff. They're not like a 4-13 team. They're still good because the core or the overall concept and the methodology building a team stayed the same. You know, maybe they win a Super Bowl with Brady over these past 3 years. Probably not. But like they've still been good. Like they're in the playoff race right now. They made the playoffs last year. The Cam Newton year was an utter transition disaster because the salary cap hell, but that's a whole different story. When you dig into what Chaim Bloom has done, the Red Sox in 2020 were the 25th ranked minor league system in baseball because basically Dombrowski emptied it to win an 18. We knew that. He dumped everybody he could. They were 25th in 20, 24th in 21, 12th in 21, 14th in 22. They're coming into 23 as the number 11 farm system. And what Chaim Bloom is saying is I'm not going to commit to anybody for 10, 11, 12 years when I've got talent coming through the system. I'm just not. I'm not going to pay somebody $25 million 10 years from now when I've got talent in the system. I don't need them. And that was how the Rays were built. And if you look at the Rays went to the World Series with a roster full of young stud arms and a lineup who most people you didn't know. And that's how they built these teams. It was young power arms and then a lineup that did enough to win. And that's, I think, what he's trying to recreate here.
Well, and I agree. But I will say my counter to that counterpoint is the Rays did it with 99% of what you're saying. But they took their cornerstone player in Evan Longoria and they didn't let him get away until he was passed. They didn't when Evan Longoria was up to be extended and to keep in Tampa Bay to build around, they kept him.
13 years
and that's the one thing that the Red Sox aren't doing with any one of their cornerstone players. And pick one. I don't care which one because I think all three are ridiculously cornerstone players. But pick one, and if it's Rafi, then great. But get it done. And then and you don't have to commit to him to 12 years today. Like sign him to we all know that contracts in any sport, but particularly in baseball, like a 12-year deal is not necessarily, it almost always is never just a 12-year deal. There's always opt-outs. There's abilities to get out of it. There's language that we talked about at the beginning of the show that you put in contracts. Like, I mean, to me, that's like a lazy from front office, not from you, Harrison, but from a lazy, like from a front office point of view. Well, I'm not ready to commit 12 years to anybody. All right, then don't. Then work language in the contract, but get this guy. Use it. If anything, if you're only going to use it for one thing, use it to show the fans that you're willing to build around a guy. Yep. And even if the contract is a Fugazi contract that's really technically only a 4-year deal, whatever. But use it to show the fans that you're willing to build around a guy. And then I think everyone, and I think I could probably speak for the city of Boston. We will be in behind you. We will be all in.
If
Right? Like
you
it's
know,
crazy.
Massachusetts is a show me state. Like, I'll believe you, but you better show me something at some point.
Mhm.
And then when you look at Evan Longoria, you're right. They had that. He was there for 13 years. However, they went to the World Series twice in the last 20 years.
Mhm.
2008, his rookie season, in 2020, after he was gone for 3 years.
Right.
So he kept them competitive over that time period. But eventually, when time came up, he went to make room for guys that were coming up, like a Rosarino and Wander Franco, and because that's what it is. You're just kind of
Without a
you're
doubt.
perpetually turning over the roster.
Yes.
But you've got to have, to your point, Sean, you got to have the guy or two that's there for 5, 6, 7 years. That is the bridge to the next guy. Like, you have to continually have those guys that are the bridge to the next one. When you don't have that, which the Red Sox don't have right now, you get this hot mess of 5th place finishes where you're grasping for that guy. Now, you could argue if the Red Sox had a closer last year, they were probably a wild card team, even with a roster that was trash.
And
So,
injuries.
I mean,
yeah, like the Red Sox
injuries
struggled
were bad.
with injuries. Like
They
they,
But he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth, right? It's like, oh, we have like the 11th best farm system, and we're not going to get rid of those guys well until they're on our team, and then we're just going to let them walk. Like,
yeah, I mean,
you gotta keep one of them. You gotta,
they come up with their 5 years of protection. You use them for that time period, then they go and the next guy steps up, and you're just continually churning them.
Yeah,
but you do need one or two people that are there for kind of the long haul.
I mean,
yeah,
I think it's important, especially like we've been saying, especially in the game of baseball, because of the number of games they play, the way that this season is stretched out and elongated. Like, it's a game of young talent.
It's depth, all about.
It's
depth.
what the game is. It's depth. Yep. But I will always lean towards proven talent over what
potential.
The height, like what somebody potential. Yeah, thank you. That's the word. And now I'm not saying get rid of every guy that hasn't played and sign everyone to $1 billion. Like, I'm not saying that. But again, to use the 3 guys, the Mookie, the Xander, the Raffy, those are proven major league, not just all-stars, all pros. Proven.
Yeah,
1,000%.
Elite.
And the idea of, well, we didn't want to commit all this money in years to Mookie because of what we had, or we needed to replenish the farm system because what we didn't have in the farm system. All right, I don't 100% agree with it, but like, I get where you're coming from, because it was depleted. You needed to replenish it. I get it. Now, did you do a good job of replenishing it with that trade? No, probably not. But you tried.
Maybe not that one. Right.
It was the idea. Like, I get it. Okay, fine. Xander. Well, we got this, Marcelo Amir kid. We got this, we're getting better in the farm system. We got these young kids coming up. Xander will give you 6 years, 5 years, but we can't give you 12. All right. Again, don't love it, but I understand where you're coming from. Fine. I mean, if we go around this carousel, yep.
However, on the Xander thing, like we said during the season, if you are going to let him go, trade him and get something for him in season. And they chose to hold on to him, and they got a big bucket of friggin' nothing when he walked out the door to San Diego.
And St. Louis would have overpaid for him.
That's where Heim. I think if you're a Red Sox fan, you want to be pissed about something, you let Xander walk for nothing when you knew you were not gonna match a contract he got.
Yeah,
they were not that committed to him.
You knew you weren't matching the years. I think they have the proof that they want to put in front of the fans, which whatever, is that they tried to match it with AAV. They tried to match it with, hey, we want you here. We want to pair you with Trevor. We want to keep you with Raffy. We want to make a run at this thing with you as the captain. Like, we want to, but we want to do it in the next 4 or 5 years. And we feel like this is a financial commitment to show you how much we want you here, yada, yada. The frustration part is you had to have known between the conversations in the past with him and Scott Boras that he wanted the 10, 11, 12 years. You had to have known that.
Right.
So, like,
they knew.
You had to have known that the years were more important than the money. So it's almost as though, like, if you knew that, then this 6-year offer was a hollow offer because you knew he wasn't going to take it. So, like, that kind of chaps my ass a little bit, but I mean, it is what it is. I think maybe they thought that after the year ended, things would settle down. Maybe he'd think on it a little more. I don't know. It ended up backfiring on them for sure.
Right.
But I think what this is all coming back to for me is you can't lose Rafi in this too. You can't do it.
No, I mean, as Red Sox fans in 04, 07, and 13, you won those World Series championships with basically teams you built, a lot of homegrown talent. A few big trades, but a lot of homegrown talent on those teams. People like Jacoby Ellsbury, Jason Varitek, Dustin Pedroia, like your core was homegrown. Love it. And then you bought a World Series in 2018 by going out and getting all these other guys to surround them. So like we've seen it both ways. What sucks is when you home grow it, you get to win in 04, 07, and 13. When you go buy it, you win it in 18, and then you suck for the next several years because you can't afford to keep doing that. And that's where it's just a different methodology. Dombrowski was forget the farm system. I don't want young kids. I want guys that know what they're doing. I want adults. I don't want kids. Whereas in the 2000s, they wanted kids, not adults. We'll turn them into adults. And now they're at this crossroads of having to unwind 2018 and rebuild back to that model. And it's ugly. Yeah. But the interesting part is they're probably not that far away. It is a total change in methodology. I get where he's coming from, but I agree with you, Sean. And I think you said it too, Nick, is that if Heim can prove that he knows what he's doing, I will be 100% behind him. But you got to tell us what the hell you're doing, man. Like you're not in Kansas City. Like this is Boston. These are intelligent fans that care, that are insane about their team. Just tell us what the hell you're doing. You let all this, you traded this talent away, let it walk away. Like, tell us why. We want to know why, man.
Like he's part of the team. He is part of the on-field team. Like he's a big part of the Red Sox team. Like, and just like the fans are, we just want to be educated and know.
Tell us what's going on.
That's it. All right. Well, that was a lot.
Last thing I'll say, I think he has proven that he knows what he's doing because the way he did it in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. I think what people don't like is the idea that we're in a big market and we look at all these other big market teams like the Yankees, like the Mets, like, and we want to go out there and spend dollar for dollar. And that's not what John Henry wants to do. It's certainly not the way Heim wants to operate. And I think people are upset by that. I think it would go a long way with him. And it just goes back to the point I'm trying to make. You can do that. You can build from the ground up, promote guys from within. We want to fill it with young talent and sprinkle in some veteran guys around it. But again, where's my cornerstone player?
Right. Yep.
That's who's the guy that it centers around? Who's my David Ortiz and Dustin Pedroia? Right? Yep. Who's my and again, maybe they weren't winning World Series left and right, but who's my Kevin Youkilis? Like who's my center of the team? Center of the guys in between, who's the guy? It was Mookie and then they traded him. It was Xander and then they didn't extend him. Now it's Rafa. Who's the guy that you're keeping around to then he's the center. We're building around. Everyone's on the same page. Yeah. Where's that?
And after Rafi leaves, who is it? Alex Verdugo? Is he our next guy up?
Maybe.
It's crazy. Anyways, yeah. So that was a lot for leading off. That was a lot of baseball. That was 2 weeks of baseball.
Through one segment.
We're an hour in.
Yeah. All right.
We're an hour in.
So here we go.
I freaking love baseball.
Oh my God, it's the best. All right. So we threw out the top 3 pitchers. We've been kind of doing the best 3 pitchers for each pitch. This last 2 weeks was the top 3 pitchers with the best Uncle Charlie, the old Yaka, the old deuce piece. So we did have people comment.
The pitch that Nick could never hit.
Oh, dude, I could sit back and hit a curveball. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
a pitch that Willie Mo's never seen. Willie Mo's never seen a curveball in his entire life. Everything was a fastball.
He hit straight ball very, very far. Curveball, not so much.
Not so much.
Brian commented. He said Clayton Kershaw, Doc Gooden, and he also threw in a main reference here, Billy Swift. So Billy Swift, he was also the first pitcher to start at Coors Field. So kind of a little bit of trivia there. So that was kind of cool.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah, he was the first pitcher on the mound at Coors Field. Nate Dunkley commented. He said Tim Lincecum.
Lincecum had a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Lincecum was nasty.
But then his fastball change combo was like soul crushing.
Yeah. And then Jim Britt said Barry Zito got to be on the
Yeah,
list. I mean,
obviously.
like he's on all of our lists. Let's be honest. I
He's the
mean,
first guy we all thought of.
like you just start typing curveball into Google, and it's just like Barry Zito's face
Well,
just automatically pops up.
What's
like,
just like
funny
when-
is when you look at like MLB.com, he's not even in their top 10 for best curveballs ever. I'm like, I don't know how that's possible.
get out of here.
Just like when we get to change up, it's just Pedro's going to be in everyone's brain. Like
As he
Pedro's
should
going to be on everybody's, as he
Yeah.
should be, right?
Yeah,
right.
as he should be.
Absolutely.
That
So-
changeup was absolutely devastating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are fun
Sean-
rabbit holes to fall into on YouTube.
Oh my God.
Right?
Just
I
Pedro change-up compilations.
I could watch curveballs and changeups on YouTube forever. Like I just love them.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. Those 102-mile-an-hour two-seamers that break bats are pretty good too.
Oh Jesus. Whatever. Show
all right.
off.
Sean, your top 3 curveballs. Go.
Barazito was one. Obviously,
Yep.
as we said, he was on all of them. Dwight Gooden with the Mets. Doc Gooden, fantastic.
Yeah. nasty.
And Sandy Koufax.
I don't know who that is.
So
but-
two lefties and Sandy. Yeah, two lefties and a righty. But yeah, those are my top 3. I mean, there was a lot out there to pick
yeah.
from. I mean, I don't think there's really, you can't really have a wrong list. I don't think. Barazito's the first one that when I think curveball, especially the baseball era, if you will, that we grew up in.
Yeah. Just the
We watched it for so long. We watched it for so long, and like I remember, you guys, we were talking about it, but like how on TV when you're a kid, like it just looks like he's lobbing up there. Like as a kid, I remember not being able to comprehend. I remember being like,
Oh yeah.
well, why don't they just hit it? Like it almost looks like in wiffle ball when my dad would just like lob me the
Right.
wiffle ball. I'm like, why don't they swing at that? And I remember my dad being like, that's not lobbed up there. Like that's at like 80 miles an hour, and that thing is sharp.
Right.
Yeah, Barazito was the one I always thought of. Doc Gooden, obviously, I didn't watch. I wasn't around when he was pitching, but I mean, he's a guy that had those couple of years of absolute dominance. And when you watch those highlights, these hitters, I mean, we're talking Major League Baseball hitters that looked foolish.
Yeah.
Foolish at his curveball. And Koufax is Koufax, so speaks for himself.
Absolutely. Harrison, your 3.
Yeah, so I actually had the exact same 3 as Sean. So I changed my list to get some diversity into our show. So my 3 are you're not going to find them on any top 10 list. They're just the curveballs that I used to love to watch. My first one was Al Leiter. Al Leiter threw the big hook just like Zito did before Zito did it. Another lefty, didn't have the same velocity as Zito, but had that big swooping curveball. And I remember facing a guy in AAU ball in a national tournament down in Nashville, Tennessee, who threw 95 miles an hour with like an 82 mile per hour, like massive breaking curveball. And like you quit on it. Like it seems so far to the zone. You're like, it's a ball. And then the thing just like back into the zone. You're like, that's impossible. It just came back like 4 feet. Like you quit on that pitch because you're like, your mind tells you it's not even close. Don't bother. And then it just pops back in. Another one for me, and a guy that I enjoyed is when he was a Red Sox, and I think I mentioned him on the show before, is Aaron Seeley. Guy had the most effortless motion you've ever seen. Like it was like if you could teach a kid to pitch, like you wanted them to have Aaron Seeley's mechanics, but he had that massive straight 12-6 break. And when he was on, he had the fastball and the curveball going. He was really hard to hit. His whole career is basically a case study in what happens when you can't get your pitches to locate, because he always had something that would fail him and he'd end up getting lit up. But he had a nasty 12-6er. And then Nolan Ryan, who would throw a bazillion miles an hour and then drop that nasty curveball. Another 12-6er. You knew it was coming, you still couldn't hit it. And that's also
Nolan
why he
Ryan's
walked a lot of guys, but he had a good curveball and it was underrated. Everybody thinks it was fastball, but his curveball was really good too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Harrison. I think it comes underrated because, like, you think Nolan Ryan, you just think like power pitcher,
Yep,
absolute gas, and he was like obviously challenged anyone and everyone with the fastball, but sneaky, really good curveball. Like sneaky, like you watch some of his better games when he's striking out 1,000 guys. It's like 40% are on the curveball sometimes. Like it's just the nights that he had it, absolutely dominant.
Yeah, it was hard for guys to gear down for that curveball. It's just like with Pedro with the changeup. His best pitch was his changeup. because you were geared up for 97 and then he just sweep that changeup and then you're like,
74 too.
come on, like what?
He's-
It's not
And
fair.
it's not, he wasn't coming at like 97, 88. It was like
No.
97, 74 changeup. Like that doesn't make any sense.
It's gross. Just not right.
My list, I have Barry Zito, obviously. Adam Wainwright, like that
Yeah.
12 to
Good
6.
curveball.
Yeah,
Sneaky
very
one.
good curveball.
Sneaky good.
And then the first guy that I ever like really saw pitch when I was young was Fernando Valenzuela in the late 80s with the Dodgers. And he was just soft stuff away all day. Like not
God.
overpowering stuff, but just soft stuff from the left side. So I mean, I just put him on the list. I just good sweeping screwball, curveball. He brought it from both sides.
Yep.
To kind of piggyback your AAU story with the first like professional curveball that I ever saw was Mark Rogers. I was a junior. He was a freshman. This kid was a freshman. If you didn't know, he signed a $2.5 million signing bonus out of Maine, which is unheard of after his senior year for the Brewers. But as a 14-year-old, he stands up there. He's like 5'10", scraggly, and just throwing cheddar. Like I'm 94, 95. And I'm just like, where is this coming from? So he pumps the first fastball like by me. Like I swing at him. I, don't come close. Second one, I foul straight back. I was like, yes. He throws me this curveball. No kidding. Starts behind me and I bail on it. And I just continue to spin around and walk back to the dugout. Like it
the worst thing,
dude, unreal. Just
the worst thing you could have done, Nick. The worst thing you could have done was be on that second fastball.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Like if you were late on he never would have thrown you the curve if you were late on that second fastball.
Nope. No, absolutely. But like, I mean, it started behind me. I bailed, and as soon as I bailed, I was like, "Yeah, that's strike 3. I'll see you later."
Yeah.
Well, so that was the first one I saw.
Similar to that, if you guys remember Brian Wilson from the Giants, the crazy guy that closed games with a beard.
Oh yeah.
He's from Londonderry, New Hampshire. I used to play him every year in high school ball. And,
he is?
Oh yeah, he's from Londonderry, New Hampshire. He played at Pinkerton Academy.
Oh.
So I used to play. I faced him every year. I think we're exactly the same age, if I remember correctly. He is. No, he's a year older than me. He was a year ahead of me. So I faced him 3 times, and it was the same way, Nick. Like he was just messing with us because he was so much better. Like we played him one year. He had just gotten back from the Pan Am games where he'd gone 2-0 with like a .4 ERA for Team USA, and he came out and he was just like playing with us. I think he hit us that day, but it was 98-mile-an-hour fastball and then a gross curveball, and then he would just like play with the changeup and screw with you because he was just that much better. But my God, was it fun to watch a guy at 16, 17, 18 pitch like that.
It's insane. It really
but
is.
He would literally throw that curveball at your head, watch you bail, watch it break back over the plate, and then stare at. He'd stand at the mound, just shake his head at you, and then he'd do it again.
Yeah, it was insane, but
yeah, wild.
That was pretty fun. We'll release. I think we'll do. What pitch do you guys want to do next week?
Let's go change up. We talked to change up. Let's go change up.
All right, best change up next week.
Pedro, case closed.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. What about? So we'll put out that question. All 3 teams for next week. I mean, all 3 pitches for next week.
Yep.
We're gonna switch. We have been releasing our best all-time teams per team throughout this 2-week break. We'll do it again this week for the AL Central. We'll just run through those real quick.
Can you create all-time teams for that group?
There's a lot of history in all of those.
They were all really good like 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
So we'll run down these real quick. The AL East with the Tampa Bay Rays. Catcher was Diana Navarro.
Brian wants a palm ball.
palm ball? Maybe. We'll see if we got time for that.
Wasn't that how guys like Hideo Nomo threw their changeup? Wasn't it basically they just like choke the thing to death and throw the changeup?
Yep. All right. All-time Rays, catcher Navarro. First base, Carlos Pena. There was a little debate on that one. We'll get to that. Second base, Ben Zobrist. Third base, Evan Longoria. Shortstop, Julio Lugo. Left field, Carl Crawford.
R.I.P. in peace.
Yep. Center field, B.J. Upton. Right field, Kiermaier. And then big game, James Shields as your starter. Fernando Rodney with the old sideways straight cap. And DH was Aubrey Huff. I mean,
he'd fire his bow and arrow at you after he closed it out.
He still does, right? He's like 55 and he still does that.
Oh.
I like that lineup, Harrison. You did a good job with the Rays there, and I honestly
Yeah.
would have had probably the same
Yeah,
roster.
it's hard, and I looked at guys like David Price. Yeah, it's hard because Big
Fred
Game
McGriff.
James got a lot of big starts. Fred McGriff was only there, I think, for 4 or 5 seasons. So statistically,
matter,
Carlos
Crown Dog.
Pena. What
All
doesn't matter
favorite.
what? No,
Crown
and
Dog.
that's the thing. Like he was the first person I thought of. Then as I'm going through the Rays, I'm like, oh, how do you leave Carlos Pena off this list? Like he is the pride and joy of Tampa.
Yeah.
But like it hurt
Sure.
not to put Fred McGriff on it. But Fred McGriff and Wade Boggs, like those first 2 veterans that came in to like legitimize that whole team, that whole organization, and then they had some young players come up behind them. But there is not a lot to work with in the history of the Rays there, so that was challenging.
Yeah. I had the Baltimore Orioles, and I went Frank Robinson in left, Adam Jones in center, BJ Surhoff in right, Eddie Murray is the DH, George Sisler at first, obviously Cal Ripken at short, I went Brian Roberts at second, Brooks Robinson at third, Chris Hoyles behind the dish, Jim Palmer pitching, and Zach Britton as the best relief pitcher. I did get some flack. Ken did say Paul Blair. Now, Paul Blair was on my list initially, but his overall stats just weren't impressive to me. Like BJ Surhoff was kind of like right there, and it's a little bit of generation bias there.
Yeah,
kind of be honest.
I had the same problem with a couple positions too. Like the catcher for the Blue Jays, I picked Ernie Witt. A lot of people said Pat Borders.
I did.
Pat Borders gets all the credit because he was there when they won.
Right.
Statistically, he was terrible. And Ernie Witt was there for like 15 seasons before Pat Borders. He was actually the reason Pat Borders spent 4 years in the minor leagues because the Blue Jays wouldn't bring him up and push Ernie Witt out. So it's hard because there's a lot of guys that were deserving.
I also had Ken also said Boog Powell over George Sisler. So I went with George Sisler, and just the main case he had the single season hit record. That was the only reason before Ichiro broke it. That's the only reason I had him there. Yeah. But yeah,
again, you're splitting hairs. You could name either guy and make a case.
And he also said Ken Singleton over BJ Upton. I did get a little one where they were like, no Brady Anderson. I was like, he was great for that 1 year, but
one season.
Yeah. We'll get to Sean's in a second. We'll go to the Blue Jays. Harrison put this one out. Catcher Ernie Witt, first base Carlos Delgado, no brainer. Although you did get a little flack for no John Olerud.
I know. I love Olerud too. He's one of my favorite guys, and I've said that many times on the show. He's one of my favorite guys, but statistically, he was that guy that was always pretty good, like consistently pretty good.
I legit almost wore my skull cap this episode just because of that reason.
I love me some John Olerud.
Third base, second base, Roberto Alomar.
If anybody debates that, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Right. Third base, Josh Donaldson. Shortstop, Tony Fernandez. Left field, George Bell. Center field, Devon White. Right field, Jose Joey Bats Batista. Starting pitcher, Roy Halladay. Relief pitcher, Tom Henke. And DH, Edwin Encarnacion. Yeah. I mean, another great list. Brian had said Ricky Henderson, and I go, Ricky Henderson could be on all 30 MLB lists.
He could make on everybody's list. I swear to God, that guy played everywhere.
Joe Carter. I said Joe Carter. I said Pat Borders. And then I also said Ed Sprague at third.
I loved Ed Sprague too. I did. But I mean, it's hard because Donaldson statistically was so much better than those guys.
Yeah.
As much as he's not likable. It's just like, A-Rod with the Yankees. Like statistically, he's one of the best third basemen ever there. But man, you just don't like the guy. You don't want to give him credit for anything.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I get it. And that's why it's fun, because some people have different views on what the all-time teams are and stuff. But all right.
And I will say real quick on the Jays, I picked Roy Halladay and Dave Stieb are like 1A and 1B in Toronto history. You can pick either guy and you could make an argument either way. I picked Halladay because I think he was there for 12 years and Steve was there for 15. Halladay didn't lose. Like he lost half as many games as Steve. His ERA was a little bit higher, but he was so dominant when he was there. He really was. So dominant. So anybody that wanted Dave Stieb, sure, plug him in. Like it doesn't matter to me, but to me those two guys are interchangeable. They are 1A and 1B, but to me Halladay was just so dominant in the time he was there.
my coolest baseball memory ever was spring training in Dunedin. It was the Blue Jays against the Reds, and I saw Ken Griffey Jr. take Roy Halladay deep,
Nice.
and Greg Kimball on our baseball
Oh, yeah.
team.
Remember
We
Kimball?
left in the 7th inning and went and got the ball, and he found it. It was in the bushes.
Kimball, another lefty with that big hook.
Yep, so good. All right. So to preface these next two, me and Harrison did post teams because Sean doesn't have Facebook, so they might be a little bit different. But I'm kind of curious to see how much of it actually might be the same because we do have pretty similar baseball minds. So, which team would you like to start with, the Yanks or
You
the
tell
Red
me.
Sox?
You
Go
tell me.
Yanks. Go Yanks. We'll say the Red Sox for the
Yankees.
last.
Don't
All
ever
right.
say "Go Yanks" on this podcast ever again,
Yankees.
Harrison.
Sorry.
I got Yogi Berra catching. I mean, am I supposed to do this like who would be my leadoff or just?
No,
Just
just at
just
all
positions.
time at each position.
So I got Yogi Berra behind the plate, Louis Gehrig at first. I'm going to catch flack for this one, but I absolutely love him. I got Robinson Cano at second base. I got
Fair.
A-Rod at third. I got Jeter at short. I got the Babe in left, Mickey Mantle in center, Dave Winfield in right, Joe DiMaggio as a DH. I have Andy Pettitte starting because I think
Don't hate
Andy
it.
Pettitte is completely slept on as a Yankees pitcher. And then I have
Absolutely.
obviously Mariano Rivera.
The only
And then-
difference.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead. And then what?
No.
The only.
No, I was
Yeah.
just going to you guys go.
So
The
so
only-
my Yankees
Go ahead.
lineup, Sean, was Yogi Berra, Lou Gehrig, Willie Randolph at second. Robinson Cano is a good one.
Mhm.
Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter. My outfield, I didn't assign positions because so many of these guys played more than one.
Well, right.
So I
that
just
was,
went
that's
Mantle,
what- that was the
DiMaggio,
hardest
Ruth.
part for me.
Yeah, so I went Mantle, DiMaggio, Ruth. I started Whitey Ford, Mariano Rivera. My DH was Don Mattingly.
Oh, Don Mattingly. Okay.
But-
so, I mean, yeah. don't hate
Winfield-
And people can think of Pettit on Astros, and I'm with Brian 100% on
Yeah.
that. But go look at his Yankee numbers.
He was so good.
This
So
guy's
good.
third. He's third all time in WAR in Yankees.
Yep.
This guy was fantastic as a Yankees pitcher.
And so clutch too, like big games.
I wanted to go with Clemens because I love Clemens, but it's Andy Pettitte as a Yankee to me.
Yeah. All right. And your all-time Red Sox lineup. Let's hear it.
Carlton Fisk behind the dish, Jimmy Fox at first, Dustin Pedroia at second, Wade Boggs at third, Xander at short, Ted Williams in left, Freddie Lynn in center, Mookie in right, David Ortiz as a DH. I got Pedro starting, and I actually have Jonathan Papelbon coming out of the pen.
A lot of similarities there. You went a little more recent than Nick did.
Yep. So I got Ted in left. I got Triz Speaker in center.
I figured
did
that.
go.
That's,
I did
that's gonna be
go.
written all over it.
Well, I had Fred Lynn there initially, and then I looked at stats and I was like, I
get the sense. I have such a hard time putting a dead ball era player over Fred
I
Lynn.
get it.
It's
I
hard.
get it.
But
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I did put Dwight Evans in right over Mookie.
Yeah, so that was I had Mookie in, and that was the one changed. I ran it by my brother, and that was Pat's change. Pat's like I would have put Dwight Evans in right, which I was like, that's a great one, but
It is.
I went
And
with Mookie.
I have backwards Ramon at short. I have Nomar at short.
Okay, yeah, that's
So-
which I mean that's
Which
I get
I love that. I've always been a huge Nomar fan.
that. So am I. I totally get that.
I mean, Xander's
I mean,
up
I
there,
think-
1,000%.
I
I mean, there's no other, and obviously Ricky Henderson, right? I mean,
I think Nomar. I think Nomar.
move on. I battled with him.
I really
too.
thought Jose Canseco would make the list on the Red Sox, but just saying.
Jose Offerman.
So I wanted Jose Offerman, Troy O'Leary. I
Trot
wanted.
Nixon.
The
I
dirt
love
dog.
Troy O'Leary, but let's not pretend like he belongs on the all-time list. He was like a really good, pretty good outfielder.
Troy O'Leary's fantastic. Troy O'Leary's fantastic.
But in the playoffs,
Um,
he was a monster.
JD Drew.
No,
No.
no.
So Nomar's probably the right pick. I ended up going with Xander because I love Xander. Xander was I was a kid when Nomar played, and I loved watching him play. Like I came into my own as a baseball guy when Xander was doing Xander things
Yeah.
for a very extended period of time in Boston. Like if we think about this, we talk about Nomar, deservedly so. The Red Sox had a revolving door at shortstop once Nomar left until Xander came. And Xander stopped that revolving door, and he was just a constant. And he just played every day, day in, day out. Didn't get hurt. And to me, he's a captain. He's a team leader. If we didn't have a Carlton Fisk, I mean, obviously it's Jason Varitek, but it's Carlton Fisk.
It was so hard. Personally, Jason Varitek is my favorite baseball player of all time. Not even close. But I still put Carlton Fisk there.
It would be Fisk.
Oh yeah, you have to.
And I'll give you guys a hint. If I end up getting the White Sox, he's my White Sox catcher too.
Oh, Ron Karkovice all day. But anyways,
God, who is the? I'm blanking on his name. Who's the catcher? AJ Pierzynski that everybody hated.
Yeah. We had him too. Could have made ours.
That's true. He could have made a couple. Right? That guy, he might make an all-time like worst list because the guy was a total tool.
I did have Papelbon too as the relief pitcher. So
there's nobody else. I mean, maybe Bob Stanley,
Tom
but
Gordon.
even then.
Tom Gordon.
Ricky played for 4 teams in the AL East: Yankees, Mets, Toronto, and Boston.
Well, you got Flash Gordon. You got Keith Folk had a good run there, but wasn't super long. Bob Stanley was the guy in the 80s.
Yeah,
I mean, the steamer.
So I mean, it would be interesting because like my favorite all-time Red Sox team is way different than the all-time best Red Sox team, and I think that would be different for all these teams. Like I probably have all-time favorite players and teams that would be way different than what the all-time bests are. But yeah, this has been fun. So we will divvy up the AL Central and we will get those out this week. We'll release one each day so you can comment and tell us where we're wrong again, just like you did last week. And we'll, go on from there. So
and real quick, I'll get to because I wanted to put Move On and I had Move On.
I love Mo.
But then you realize Jimmy Fox was an all-star every year he played for the Red Sox.
He was so good.
There's
a reason his numbers up at Fenway.
He was in Boston for 7 years. He was 7 all-stars. He won like 6 Silver Slugger. He was so good in Boston.
Yeah, it's
so
I don't think
I had a hard time, but I'm like I feel like I had to.
Yeah.
But
Movon would be on my favorite one, no doubt. I went to Movon hitting camp when I was like 12, dude. And
there's nothing better than Movon rolling his Hummer on the way back from the Foxy Lady that night.
He would be the first guy on my list. He'd be like, "Oh, favorite Red Sox player, Movon."
Yeah, 1,000%.
And I mean, Fox hit in the 7 years he was in Boston. He batted .320 and hit 222 home runs in 7 seasons.
How many? He had like 800 something RBIs, didn't he?
788, damn near 800.
Oh, 788. That's what I saw. Yeah, damn near 800. RBIs.
I mean, stupid. I mean, the guy was good for 30 and 100 and a 320 average every freaking season. My God.
All right. We're going to move on to the rounding third question. Obviously, like I said, we'll put out the pitch selection one. And then this is also going to be our other question. Would you sign Carlos Correa with his injury history updates, whatever's going on with that? And or where does Trevor Bauer go, if anywhere? So we, again, kind of recapping the top of the show here. Bauer is supposed to be released by the Dodgers. All reports are saying that the Dodgers are going to release him. Where does he go? Where's the best fit for that?
Put your GM hat on. What are you doing?
Yep. And would you take the chance on Carlos Correa for the money that he's expecting to get? I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'd take him for $3 million. No, like the expected money that they're expected to pay him out. Would you sign him for your team or organization? So that's what
I just want to go back, and I don't want to offend anybody. Maybe you want to wear a GM hat or a GM soft shell. If you're like John Olerud and that's your thing, I don't want to judge what you wear on your head.
Yeah. Or what was that padded hat that Mets pitcher had? That was
Jesus.
that was padded all the way around. That was crazy too. But yeah. kind of a lot in that first half of the show there. I don't have anything heading home, latest news. I mean, the Correa stuff and the Bauer stuff at the beginning was kind of the latest news mixed with the
Right.
I did not mention Gene Segura is not coming to the Red Sox. He is with the Miami Marlins. He did sign with the Marlins.
Oh yeah.
So I know the Red Sox
Oh,
were
the last
in, but
the last thing I had, just I saw the Marlins are interested in Cassis. And I would typically say that a guy like Cassis with his, you know, upside potential, kind of big power cornerstone first, like you'd think untouchable. But even outside of Alcantara, who I'm sure is untouchable,
oh.
You say
they still have a
Lopez?
they still have a bevy of really young pitching, like good young pitchers
They
Mhm.
do.
in that organization. Like you wonder
Bring
if a team
Sixto
like that,
Sanchez over here and Pedro would be in that dugout in 2 seconds.
yeah, like
I'm telling
so
you.
I wonder. I have no idea if there's anything to it. I have no idea but I saw it scrolling through Twitter and I thought, if the Cubs came calling, I'd say probably not. But with Miami, let's see, maybe. And if that's the
Pablo
case,
Lopez is a great one. Yep.
What the?
if Tristan Cassis has to, so if Tristan Cassis has to go, did Hosmer sign? Bring Hosmer back.
Yeah.
Yep, right. Which
I
again
mind
kind
that.
of goes to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Is like why let him go now? Like it didn't make sense. He still had 3 years on his deal. You didn't really know. Like it doesn't hurt to just hang on to him and then release him whenever. Like unless there was a deadline behind the scenes that they were like, well, we got to trim the roster down or whatever.
Right.
But
Well, there was that.
Still.
My honest bet is
give me a
veteran
chance to
player.
play somewhere.
Yeah, give me a place to sign on. Like if it's Cassis's position, which it looks like it is, and I'm not going to play here, just give me an opportunity to sign. And he's earned that as a
absolutely.
pro. He's earned that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I got three quick hitters for you.
Whew. All right, go.
Our boy JD Martinez to the Dodgers, which I think we all knew about.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that
$10
one.
million bucks. Not a surprise he signed somewhere. But interested that it was short deal, short money. Second item is, I'm not sure if anybody saw, but it was a big deal yesterday. Pete Rose placed his first legal sports bet in Ohio yesterday, which was like on every media outlet, because here's Pete Rose rolling up to place legal sports bets now. The irony of that was
Ohio.
great. In Ohio. Right. The irony of that was perfect. And then lastly, what was his name? So Korean star Jung-Hoo Lee, who's the reigning KBO MVP, will be posted to MLB after the 23 season. So the reigning KBO MVP will be coming to MLB baseball next year. So another international player that's going to be kind of entering the fray with some experience somewhere else.
How old is he? Do you have that right there?
Let's see. I will pull that up.
How does that posting work? Do they have to like fulfill their contract with that team that they're on and then
he's 24 right now
and be requested to be posted? I don't know exactly how that works.
Yeah. So my understanding how the posting works is that the player has to approach a team and ask to be posted. The team has to agree to it. And then any posting fee received goes to the team to basically buy out the player's contract to let him go. So it's like an old eBay auction. You can set like a minimum, like the minimum posting fee is X. They've got to get at least that much or they don't let them go. They get more than that, great, they keep it. But ultimately it's a way to basically buy out. Basically they're auctioning off the remainder of his contract to get paid off to let him go.
All right. Makes sense.
But he's currently 24. Last year he hit 349. So his slash line was 349, 421, 575, 23 home runs. He only struck out 32 times in 144 games.
What position he play? He pitches.
I feel like they all pitch. I don't feel like he's an outfielder, but I don't.
Right. Sounds like a center fielder contact guy.
Yeah. I'll have to find. I can't see what position he plays. But he's got a he steals bases. He hits for average power. He's got speed. He went into KBO right through high school. He was the first player in KBO history to skip any kind of collegiate or intermediary and go right to professional coming out of high school.
Wow.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
and they play 144 games. So to be a 349 hitter, even at a AA pitching level, that's still pretty damn impressive.
Well, and here's a guy who's 24 years old and he struck out 32 times. Yeah, he's a center. He plays all outfield positions. He's primarily a center fielder.
It will be interesting because I want to see how Yoshida is and how his contact kind of translates over here this year. I think that's going to be kind of interesting. And then
I think the contact, I think the idea, like, it's a totally different game over there, right? Like, those guys, they pitch away from contact. Like,
They do.
like their style of pitching, their like philosophy of pitching is totally different. So
right.
I think the contact will be fun. I don't think he'll have issues putting the bat on the ball because if anything, pitchers over here are much more aggressive. Like they attack the zone a lot more. So if you play over in those like Korean, Japanese league and all that, like if you can put the bat on the ball over there, you can put the bat on the ball here. I think it's going to be an adjustment to adjust to the way that they attack you.
Right.
So
because they're going to be pitching you inside. They're going to be pitching you up. They're not just going to be throwing you stuff away.
Right. Like in fastball counts, like you're not going to get like a 3-1 slot, like a 3-1 curveball because, well, if I walk you, I walk you. Like, no, they're coming at you. Like, doesn't necessarily mean a fastball, but they're coming at you. Like, I expect his strikeout numbers to go up here, but maybe not necessarily because the contact is bad, but I just think it's going to take him a while to adjust to how the pitching happens. So like that, I'm interested to like all those guys that come over here from those leagues interest me. Like that's what I look at. Like those are the fun things to watch to me.
So yeah, so
people
in
are also
6 years
trying to seek the next Ichiro too, like these high contact guys, like like he set the bar so high. But
in 6 seasons, he's a 342 hitter with a 407 OBP. He's got more walks than strikeouts, 334 to 281. He was the rookie of the year in 17 as an 18-year-old kid. He's got 6 years in. He's 24 years old.
407 OBP. That's
right.
But again, it tells you that this is a kid that knows the zone.
Yeah. And
right? He'll take his walks.
Yep.
He'll take his walks, but it's going to be, can you adjust to them attacking you?
100%.
Right.
Because when you're over there, you probably walk up 50% of the time expecting to walk. Here, you don't expect to walk. You earn a walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you have to earn walks in Major League Baseball. So, I'm interested, but that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for tonight. Like I said, we will we'll take your top 3 pitchers for changeups throughout this week. We will release our all-time American League Central teams. I just had a brain cramp there. And then we will see you all next Monday at 8 p.m. Wicked Shap. And we'll see you then.
See ya.
See you, boys.